I see what ho, chaps and chappets, Game Chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and I dare say we have some quite exciting news here for you Nintendo fans out there. Yes, indeed, it seems Nintendo have made a bit of an exciting announcement of sorts.
Well, they most certainly have, old chap. Yes, indeed. You see, we've just arrived into January, and Nintendo has said they're going to be holding a Nintendo Direct, and all of you out there should know what that means. And if you don't, it means it's where they tell you what's going on and release information and say we think this and that and the other. And that's actually going to be, I think it's within 24 hours now.
Yes, indeed, this Nintendo Direct has been announced today, fellows. There were rumours of it floating around before, people saying maybe there might be some kind of media event, but now we know for sure that within the next 24 hours there is going to be a brand spanking shiny new Nintendo Direct, you know.
There most certainly will be, yes indeed. So we're discussing here what will be in that. So hang around, listen, add your comments, etc.
That's right, fellows. Now, of course, we do know the basis of the Nintendo Direct this time will be the focus on Spring, Wii U and 3DS titles with an additional media event after the Direct. So this is quite a large event. This is no small thing, you know.
It's not a small one, no. They're going to obviously want to make this quite, important and quite impactful, as it were.
Yes.
Because obviously it's the first one of the year.
Yes.
So they don't want to put some little thing on that they're not really saying much at all.
That's right.
So, as you say, their focus is on Spring, Wii U 3DS titles, which is rather interesting because we are waiting for titles to come out and we're not sure when they're going to come out. They may indeed release the actual dates tomorrow. We don't know.
Well, indeed. Now, of course, we do have a few titles which are specifically pegged in for spring or the second quarter of this year on the Nintendo website. And they are, of course, the big one, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D on the 3DS, Codename Steam, also on the 3DS, and the mysterious Splatoon on Wii U.
So now when we say spring there, I mean, what are we talking about when we say spring? Are we talking April or when?
I think we're talking sort of May, I beg your pardon, March, April, May, June, that sort of time. That is, of course, spring up to the second quarter. And therefore, I think it's a safe bet to say we're going to be seeing something connected with Majora's Mask, Codename Steam, and or Splatoon in tomorrow's Direct.
Right, so Majora's Mask. So most certainly we think this is coming out in spring. We think so. It could be March, Aprilish. We don't know, but maybe they may say tomorrow. Well, there's a lot of excitement around this, of course, and they've said ideas that they're going to be doing with the game, etc. Flavours they're going to be adding, different boss battles and things like that. But they may well be releasing more information tomorrow about that.
I think so, because of course before they did tell us they were going to be revealing more and more about Majora's Mask in the near future. And of course, what better time to do that than at an official Nintendo Direct like the one tomorrow?
Most certainly, yes indeed. Now, what is exactly Codename Steam?
Codename Steam, it's a rather quirky one, I think. It's some kind of a steampunk-inspired, sort of American, sort of versus aliens RTS. Not an RTS, it is in fact a strategy game. It's not a quite real-time strategy, though.
Right.
It's more like XCOM, turn-based, that sort of thing, fighting the alien menace. In fact, it is very, very similar to XCOM in some ways. You might term it Nintendo's very own XCOM of their own choosing. And of course, this is quite interesting because it's actually being made by the same place that does Fire Emblem and Advance Wars.
Now Fire Emblem was a very good title, I think.
Very popular last year, yes.
It was very popular.
A couple of years ago.
Most certainly. And Nintendo like these sort of games. There's no doubt about that. They like introducing them. Some of them aren't that popular in terms of sales, but they certainly seem to like producing these.
Yes.
So I think we can perhaps perceive with Codename Steam that it's going to be, a well bolted together and well done title.
A good pun there, old chap. Yes. And of course, I think we have, what's interesting to note here is we have 2 out of 3 of these titles are actually new IPs. That is, of course, Codename Steam and Splatoon. Both of those represent new properties, and it's the first time that those particular series have actually seen the market.
Most certainly. Now, Splatoon. Let's talk about that for a minute and how popular it might be. They've said a lot about Splatoon in the last, few months, haven't they? They've been talking about it.
And let's face it, Splatoon is a bit weird, old chap.
Well, it's a bit weird, yes.
It is.
I mean, one of the chaps here, he likes it. What's his name has been doing this?
Who is it, old chap? Splatoon is, Iwata, is it? I'm not sure.
Not sure, but they've been playing it up and saying
Yes.
it's going to be rather fun. What's it exactly about?
Well, you seem to be perhaps taking on the form of some squid kid, for want of a better word, old chap, who goes round some arena of sorts, trying to cover the ground in the most paint they can possibly manage of their own colour. The idea being, of course, if you cover the arena in more paint than the other team, within the given time limit or the given criteria for the match, you of course win, and there's also a single-player mode too. It appears to take some sort of strange strange and warped inspiration from Super Mario Sunshine, perhaps.
So it's a little bit like some sort of paintball game that's inside out. You have to blast everything around you instead of the person.
Well, yes, it's like the opposite of Mario Sunshine, I suppose. Rather than cleaning up the mess, you're actually making a mess.
So you're fighting against the opposition there to basically cover the whole world with your colour before they do.
Exactly, that's right. It's a very, very strange and sort of, if you will, kid-friendly shooter-type game, which is a rather interesting idea for Nintendo. Perhaps they're hoping to hit the big time here by capitalising on online multiplayer and that sort of thing.
Well, maybe, and of course it's worth noting here that this is a new sort of game for Nintendo.
Yes.
And of course that's important for them. It's going to be important for them bringing out new games because, of course, at the moment we've got the Majora's 3D Mask and they're
Majora's Mask, you mean?
I beg your pardon, Majora's Mask 3D, yes. Etc.
Yes.
And of course a lot of the games that they're introducing are old games, Mario, Donkey Kong, and all these things like that. So these new games, they'll want to be seeing how the community receives this Splatoon, etc.
And Codename Steam, of course.
Codename Steam certainly as well.
That's right. Now,
but whether or not they like it, we'll have to see.
That's interesting. Now, of course, speaking of those other titles you were just talking about there, old chap, we do know there are some other games on the table for 15, and they include Art Academy, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Mario Party, Yoshi's Woolly World, and many more. But of course, the question is, will those titles be slated for spring? And I don't think they are, old chap.
Well, I'm not sure. They're saying the focus is on spring Wii U 3DS titles, but, you know, there's nothing to say that they won't be discussing games beyond that time. We don't know.
Well, yes,
they say the focus is on it, but it doesn't mean to say they won't talk about it.
They might do. They could talk of Mario Maker, Kirby, Star Fox, The Big Legend of Zelda on Wii U, or even Xenoblade Chronicles. They could perhaps add a little tidbit here and there on those titles, but of course the main focus is actually on the spring releases, and this brings up an interesting question, old chap.
Yes, and what is that?
The question is, because we only know of 2 to 3 titles pegged in for spring, will there be any new games shown tomorrow?
Ah, that's a very, very important point, of course. Yes, indeed. And of course, that's what we're all hoping, that they will indeed be announcing new games, because they've only got those. So far, we already know about those. We don't know exactly when they're coming out. But what could they be introducing, or what may they have in the pipeline, or perhaps produce a surprise, which everyone wants to see on the Nintendo Directs, for new games?
Indeed. And of course, we do know that they have, as I've just said there, a very small number of titles currently on offer for spring. So since they've specifically said the focus is going to be on spring games, it does suggest they'll have some tricks up their sleeve. Now, some ideas floating around are, of course, a Pokemon game of some description, perhaps any information at all on Metroid, please, I say, and out there in the far fringes of reality, an F-Zero title, but of course that is very much on the fringe.
Well, that's interesting, yes. I mean, Pokemon, let's look at that. They've had a couple of new titles come out in the last few months with regard to Pokemon, as we know.
Yes.
So whether they'll do another one this early, this soon, I don't know. It is a popular game, of course, so they may well have something in there for that. I mean, Metroid, yes. Very popular within the small sort of niche that it serves, if I dare say small. I mean, it's not quite as big as Mario, of course, but there's a lot of interest in it.
Yes.
But I think with Metroid, they can't just introduce a little quickie maybe on the 3DS or something like that.
Not really.
I think the community expects them to produce something now on the Wii U with all the graphics and all the flavour.
And all the cutscenes, Mr. Iwata.
Well, all the cutscenes as well, yes, of course. But he
doesn't like those.
He doesn't really like, because no doubt. But they're going to be called on by the community to produce there. So, not sure whether they'll be mentioning Metroid, but they might put a taster in. They might say, look, we've got this planned as well.
We can only hope,
yes,
Chap.
for later on in the year or something, I don't know.
Now, you may say, why on earth did I say Metroid and then F-Zero? Well, F-Zero, of course, an astute observer on social media actually spotted a post from Nintendo Australia with the caption, "You got boost power," at the same time as the Nintendo Direct was announced. So it showed a photo, or a picture in this case, of a Mii in the Captain Falcon racing costume on the F-Zero stage in Mario Kart 8, saying "You got boost power," which is, of course, one of the series' classic catchphrases from the announcer, and that was posted at the same time as the Nintendo Direct announcement. So some people have taken to this and said, well, perhaps this is some kind of clue or hint.
Well, yes, they have. Yes, they have a little bit of excitement there, saying, yes, F-Zero is coming out. They're going to announce it. You see, but could it be just more false hope for the F-Zero fans?
Well, yes.
Because Mr. Miyamoto has already shot down the idea of F-Zero on the existing hardware and gamepad. Oh dear.
Well, he has. He, of course, said perhaps he would like to have the right hardware. In other words, a gamepad or control pad or something like that for the next F-Zero. But we have to remember with Mr. Miyamoto, he has been known to throw out a few curveballs in the past.
Well, he has. So
I mean, he blatantly bluffed us, El Chap, when it came to the new 3DS hardware being released, for example. I think some time ago he indicated there would be no new 3DSs on the market, and yet, of course, shortly after that, there was the new 3DS XL, and then, of course, the brand new Nintendo 3DS, hot on its heels. So, indeed,
well, yes.
Perhaps it could just be a curveball, who knows?
Well, it could be, yes, indeed. They're going to be called on, as I said earlier, to produce something here and excite the fans for the whole year, perhaps beyond, certainly, I think, beyond spring.
Yes.
So we should expect to hear what's going on beyond spring as well, and what's out there. Certainly there's the other games we mentioned there, such as Art Academy. What is Art Academy exactly?
It's a drawing game, I think.
A drawing game.
Painting, you know.
Well, I don't know how popular that will be, but Monster Hunter 4 was very popular, I believe, in Japan, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
That's most certainly.
Oh, speaking of Japan, actually, that's an interesting point, because there is another title in Japan which is absolutely red hot out there at the moment, and that is Yokai Watch, or I think that means Ghost or Monster Watch. It's by the same company that makes Fantasy Life and Professor Layton, and out there it is a #1 seller on the 3DS across the board, and there has been talk that that particular title, Yokai Watch, may make it over to the West possibly this year, so who knows, they could perhaps use this as a chance to announce that.
Well, they may do. I mean, Yokai Watch, I don't know whether that'll work here. They may need to change the title. And of course,
perhaps Ghost Hunter or something, of course,
well, yes, Ghost Hunter, whatever. I think certainly Nintendo will know what goes down well in Japan, and I think they do understand how to perhaps sift the Japanese games from the
English ones and American ones.
Yes, English-American ones over here. So it remains to be seen. If they think it's popular enough and they think, well, it's like this game, it's like Layton or whatever, then they may well introduce that, certainly. But Mario vs. Donkey Kong on Wii U, what do you think about that one then?
Well, I'll have to set my alarm clock for that one, El Chap. I think it's nothing too exciting there, but I'm sure it does have some fans, of course. You know, it's a sort of niche title, I think, old boy.
Well, certainly. Now, and of course, what Yoshi's Woolly World...
That's a big one.
That's quite a big one, most certainly. So whether they'll talk about that or maybe perhaps announce a date for that, we'll have to wait and see.
Indeed. Mario Maker is, of course, a promising-looking title, quite a big one, but again, very nichey. In fact, a bit like Mario vs. Donkey Kong, because both games feature this level editing idea.
Yes, most certainly. How popular that'll be will remain to be seen.
Yes.
Whether they'll be pushing that at Direct tomorrow, we'll have to wait and see. Perhaps not. They're liable to stay on the more popular titles. What about Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush then?
Kirby. Well,
yes.
I think we know quite a lot of information about that particular game.
We did.
It's a break with the usual Kirby tradition, so we may or may not see more on that. But certainly one title that everyone is clamouring to know more about, no doubt, is Star Fox on Wii U.
Star Fox Wii U, yes. Must be talking about it tomorrow. I think they have to.
They have to.
They've already said some, but they haven't really shown us too many pictures, etc. Maybe they'll show us little teasers tomorrow. Maybe they won't.
We do know there's going to be a playable demo of Star Fox on Wii U at E3 this year, so it does make sense they will be making at least some kind of announcement between then and now.
Most certainly, and perhaps expanding on what they've already said about it.
We hope so.
Well, most certainly. And of course, we mustn't forget The Legend of Zelda Wii U, obviously.
Well, indeed.
They're clearly going to be talking about that.
But not necessarily tomorrow, old chap.
Well, no, not necessarily, but I think they should be tomorrow, surely.
I don't know. After all, they did say spring titles, old chap. It's not really a spring one, is it, if you think about it?
Well, most certainly no, but I think they're going to be wanting, as I said earlier, to actually talk about things beyond spring as well, to excite fans as well as spring, keep them going, as it were, keep the fire stoked, as it were.
We'll see, old boy. It remains to be seen. And of course, Xenoblade Chronicles X is another one on the table for Nintendo at the moment.
Yes, it is, yes. How that's received, we'll have to wait and see. The last one, how did the last one do?
It had quite a loyal following, I think,
Well, it did, I think, yes.
It must have sold well, because after all, Shulk got into Super Smash Bros. On Wii U, didn't he, old chap?
Well, he did, yes, indeed. So it's obviously a title that they think is very good and
yes.
the fans like.
It was received very well, I think. So indeed, fellows, we are seeing many possibilities for the upcoming Direct tomorrow, and I think the biggest possibility, aside from titles, is in fact hardware. And yes, I am talking about the new Nintendo 3DS.
Ah, yes, of course. Now, the new Nintendo 3DS,
yes,
they are going to obviously want to promote that because, of course, they're about to sell the thing.
Yes.
And, of course, also, perhaps they may be saying, well, you know, this is very handy for this game. It goes very well with this game, perhaps, with a new... I think they've got a button, haven't they? New thumb button, things like that.
And actually, I think that's a good point, because, of course, the new Monster Hunter Ultimate game actually makes use of the right thumbstick on the new 3DS hardware to control the camera, which I can tell you from experience playing the game is very, very handy to have. Believe me, you do need that to control the camera. So, of course, you can only do that on the new Nintendo 3DS, which, of course, gives you an incentive to buy that console for Monster Hunter or for any other given game which makes use of the new features.
Exactly. So perhaps they'll be combining the two, perhaps showing the 3DS along with one of these games and showing how good it is, prior to making sales of the thing. Also, does it have an amiibo reader on it as well?
I think it does, of course. You can slap amiibos onto that central screen and it will, of course, pick them up, perhaps in Super Smash Bros. And other amiibo supporting titles.
And on the old one, does it also work on those?
No, of course. That requires a separate reader, I understand.
Most certainly. So obviously they're going to want to promote that with all these amiibos coming on the market.
Yes, and just a quick note, actually. Of course, you may know the new 3DS features this screen or facial tracking mechanism, whereby it looks at your face and follows you around so it can keep you in the 3D zone at all times. I've actually used that feature myself, and I think it's quite good, old chap. It does get confused sometimes if you've got multiple faces looking at the screen or in dark lighting scenarios, so sometimes you may wish to turn it on or off, but on the whole, it's quite a nice idea.
Most certainly, so I'm sure everyone out there will be thinking, oh yes, well, we'll have to have a look at that when it comes out.
Yes.
But there's a lot down there what they could be talking about tomorrow, and we'll discuss some things there that are certainly in the pipeline.
I think so.
So I think it's going to be altogether quite an exciting year for Nintendo, and we'll see how they started off with this Nintendo Direct.
And as for me, I am very excited about the Direct tomorrow, fellas. I can hardly wait, I have to say.
Most certainly, yes we are.
Yes, and we will of course be covering the Nintendo Direct in full tomorrow, right here on the Game Chat and Birdie channel, so do stay tuned for more on that, I say.
Most certainly, yes, and we'll let you know what's all going on, and you let us know what you think about all these titles and things, and what you'd like to see.
Do share with us your thoughts, fellas, for this has been Game Chat and Birdie, bringing you news of the latest Nintendo Direct, I say. Thank you, guys, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you once more on the next exciting outing, my words.
Oh, yes.
Until then...